Welcome to the Burn Boot Camp Podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Kline, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devan Kline.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Boot Camp Podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Burn Boot Camp Podcast. I have a dear friend here for our focus meeting episode this week. This week's focus meeting is with Anna Fearrington from Concord, North Carolina. Anna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you today. And Concord, if you guys don't know out there, is one of the OGest of the OG locations. It is literally our fifth location. Sixth location was Concord, and seventh was South Durham over there in Raleigh, Durham. So Concord has been open for a long time, and Mike and Andrea Hartshorn, shout out to our franchise partners there for creating an amazing environment and bringing Anna to us today for the podcast. Everybody, Anna, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your background, about your story. Don't mind if I ask some questions along the way, but I really want to get to know you, where you come from. So much of who we are is who we've been, right? And so in order to inform a podcast today and really get us moving the needle, right? That's the goal. Move the needle for you personally and Burn Nation and those podcast fans that are listening, watching. You guys come with us. Come on the journey with us, okay? Because we're going to get some work done today. That's what this is about, okay? Some podcasts are entertainment. Some are for education, and we try to edutain. So here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready, Anna? Let's tell us your background. What's your story, and how did you get here today?
Well, I grew up doing sports. I ran cross country and I swam year round. I started swimming when I was quite young. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina. I grew up here.
Not many people grow up in Charlotte and stay here. Like everyone I met when I first moved here was from like the Midwest or the Northeast or something. So is that pretty rare to?
Yeah,
Okay.
It is. We've lived here since 2002. So I say I grew up here.
Pretty much.
But I was always active as a kid. And my mom would joke with me, like I just ate all the time because as a kid, you could just eat so much and it would not affect you at all. And so I specifically remember whenever I would swim year round, I would come home from school. I would have a bowl of like butter pasta, and then I would go to swim practice. Or I think I would come home from my first swim practice, come home, have a bowl of pasta, go to my next swim practice, come home, have a second dinner. Like that's just how it was. And I, really high metabolism, young, really active. And then as I got into college, I stopped with the sports just because I went to college for civil engineering, and I tried the club swimming thing for a little bit. And then I would run here and there, but I wasn't on a team anymore. And so in my first year of college, I, like many others, gained the freshman 15. And I came home from college after that first year, and I was at, I think it was American Eagle with one of my college friends, and my mom was there too. And we were trying on clothes, and I don't remember how the conversation came up, but my friend mentioned how she had lost some weight during college, like during the freshman year. And my mom, a disclaimer, I don't think she meant anything by it, but I think it just is what slipped out of her mouth was, oh, well, why didn't you lose weight too? You were doing everything together and instead you gained weight. It's been a long time. That's how I kind of kept it with me. And so after that, that summer, I lifeguarded at the Y. And I specifically remember keeping a journal where I would write down everything I ate. I would go in, I would weigh myself in the morning and in the evening, every single day. And I would limit what I ate. So whenever it was just me preparing my meals, my parents were working full time still at the time, it would just be like a grilled chicken patty and tomato and water. Like it was not anything that was going to sustain me, especially at the age I was at. just being active, working at the pool, running around all day.
Yeah, you like overcorrected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I became obsessive about it.
Okay.
And I would,
Was it to the point of eating disorder?
if,
Pretty close.
I mean, to be honest, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you look at it, and I would look at the scale, and I would say, okay, 0.2 pounds. Like, that would be a celebration. If I lost 0.2 pounds, even between the morning and the evening. And I know now, with the knowledge that I've gained since joining Burn and going to focus meetings and everything like that, that is, that's not how the body works.
Right.
That could just be water. It could just be, you were shifting one way or the other on the scale. Now I don't step on a scale unless I have to at the doctor, and I don't pay attention to it.
Do you, generally speaking, have a disinterest with metrics, numbers, performance indicators, things like that? You tend to stay away from that blanket because of the 0.2 pound perspective? Like with logging and nutrition, like sometimes, if the numbers disinterest you, they might disinterest you in other areas too. And I don't ever want to give you advice that would be an area of disinterest. So I'm asking to say, as we continue this, are you numerically motivated or demotivated?
I'd say it's neutral.
Okay.
I have tracked my food since that time in my life in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
And the main focus was whenever I joined Burn, and in my first month, I was coming to Burn 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. And I just wasn't seeing as many results as I wanted to with my body. And so I had a focus meeting, and my trainer said, okay, focus on your nutrition. And so then I really dialed into my nutrition. She showed me how to track my macros and everything in a healthy way, because I also told her that I had a history of tracking them in a very unhealthy way.
Great.
And I don't want to get into that again.
Great.
Because it could be easy for me to do that. And so the only focus that I started with was the 100 grams of protein and the water. And so then I start to get a feel for how my body feels with enough protein, how I feel during the workouts. And then I start to learn more about the other macros and kind of how to get them. Can
I pause you real quick?
Yes.
There? Don't lose that thought. But when you say you did the 100 grams of protein, did you do our classic 100 G's, 100 Z's, 100 ounces of water, 100 grams of protein? That was like your first. That was like your first dedication, your commitment. I'm doing these two things, or was it just the protein?
It was both.
It was both of those things. Okay, continue.
So with 100 grams of protein, I started to get a feel for the other macros and some meals that I could use as my go-to meals, especially with meal prep for lunches during the week at work. That was really important for me. And so once I started to kind of get the idea of what foods I could eat that would get me the macros that I needed to perform the way I wanted to in the gym, and then see the results in myself, then I can kind of stick to that, and I can really tweak those. And then I stopped tracking because I got what I needed. I didn't want to have that be a daily thing that I go to, or I feel incomplete if I miss something in my tracking or anything like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, you can start to get obsessive with it. And so you noticed that about yourself. How long were you doing the log again, roughly?
For about a month.
About 30 days. Okay. And what did you learn from that?
Well, I love to eat. I love food, and I love good food.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that I can eat all of that, just in, your portions are important. Staying away from the sweets, like the added sugars, but you can still get sweet foods. It's just not necessarily in that false sugar.
Right. Yeah. So now you're starting to bring us up to like today, and what your routine is like. So just walk through that real quick. What's your routine like now? I know there's been some hurdles for you. Endometriosis is, something that you've been diagnosed with, and we want to talk about that because that adds another layer of intensity when it comes to solving problems. So, and progressing. So let's talk about that a little bit. You're now 30 years old, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So give me life now at 30.
Well, I try to stick to about the same-ish meals for my breakfast and lunch, just because repetition is easy for me to keep up. and it makes shopping a lot easier in the grocery store, and it's quick. I don't want to just go spend endless amounts of time in there, and I get overwhelmed. So morning, I wake up, I have half of a protein bar before the gym, and then I finish the other half on my way home. And then I have some egg whites. Well, I make this for the office. So I have egg whites and some cheese, and then breakfast chicken sausage. I have that. And then I'll often pair that with a cup of yogurt. And then I take a break from eating. And then I do a few hours of work. And then I'll have some fruit, or I'll have like an apple with peanut butter. And then I have my lunch, which is a little bit lighter. I love grabbing just like the Taylor Farm salad packs, and I toss a bigger chicken sausage on there. And then I'll pair that with either the cup of yogurt is then, like these little additives that I have on my meals, I add them throughout the day. And then for dinner is usually a little bit bigger. And I also work above a Trader Joe's. And so I try to go in there after work and look at the labels, make choices because for dinner, it's my husband and I eating. So I try to make choices that are not like so healthy, they're really boring for him as well. And also I would get bored of them too. So I try to look at things that'll be different from week to week. So
you really care about this, or else you wouldn't do all that work.
Right.
That's a lot of intense work. So what is the motivation behind doing the work?
So throughout my life, I had painful period cramps. And I kind of in the back of my head thought this might seem a little severe than most women. And then during the time that I wasn't eating well in college, I also was passing out a lot because I wasn't fueling my body. And I was just too obsessed about what I was eating. I wasn't eating the right stuff, and it was showing in passing out. And so my purpose is to fuel my body because I want to feel good. I was tired of not feeling shaky. I was tired of not feeling sustained. And I also have gotten into habits. No, I'm not the only one during COVID who got a little carried away with the ordering food in and all that stuff. So I've also gone the other direction of eating the fried foods and all of the extra like wheat and oils and additives on food. And so that makes you feel kind of crummy as well. So my motivation for eating well is not the scale at all. Well, it, in a way.
It's like a byproduct.
Yeah. It's not my focus.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily the way I look. I feel like that is a result of what I eat. But it's not the driving factor. It's really to feel good. That's why one of the reasons that I've started limiting the amount of alcohol I drink, just because I know that can make me feel bloated. That can kind of take away from feeling just clean and fresh.
And, so to those of you that are not familiar with endometriosis, it is a medical condition in which the tissue, similar to the lining of the uterus called the endometrium, grows outside of the uterus. It's a tissue that can be found on ovaries, fallopian tubes, and in the outer surface of the uterus, and is oftentimes very, very painful. And so you started feeling these abnormal pains that cause a variety of symptoms like pelvic pain, especially during menstruation, heavy menstrual bleeding, pain during intercourse, and sometimes infertility. This condition can be chronic, and long-term management is required. And so, as you are dealing with pain management, how does this affect your health journey? Is it around that time of the month? Does it flare up? How are you managing it? Does it get in the way if you don't manage it? Does it start to really be like, how painful is it really? And talk a little bit about it, because I don't think there's too many people that do. And we talked about this off air. So just take a moment to talk about endometriosis and your experience with it, and any advice that you could give women that are out there going through it.
Okay. I was having painful periods, and so I went to the doctor, and I told my doctor about this, and then she said, I think you might have this, but the only way to truly get diagnosed with endometriosis is to have a laparoscopic surgery where they can go in and with the surgical cameras, and they can look around at your organs and see where the tissue buildup is. And I think it was after I went to the doctor the first time to kind of start this conversation, but it was before I actually had the laparoscopic procedure. I was in camp, and I remember I just had this awful pain. It was just like full body strength, but I had an awful pain, and I couldn't even explain it to the trainer because it just felt like my organs were like just twisting or like popping or stretching, and it was the weirdest thing, but it really hurt. And so then I realized, okay, I'm making the right decision going to the doctor. Growing up, I wouldn't go to the doctor for every little thing. A lot of things can kind of be mediated without having to go seek medical advice. I mean, if you went every time you had a headache, it would be a little much. Right. So, but this, I realized that I was doing the right thing. And I was looking out for myself. And so I started doing research just on Google. Try not to rely too heavily on that because you can get really carried away with WebMD and whatnot. But I did some research. I joined an online Facebook support group just to kind of see other people's experiences with it and to see like kind of there's a large community of women who suffer with this. And so I wanted to learn about it. And that's where I learned that kind of trying to eat more anti-inflammatory foods can help with bloating. Some women have completely cut alcohol out. I cut it out a bit, not entirely, but I found what works for me. And so about 2 months after I first spoke to the doctor, I went in for my laparoscopic procedure. They found a large cyst on my left ovary, and they were almost not able to salvage my left fallopian tube. And so I had the procedure, and that explains the pain in hindsight.
And meanwhile, you have the vision of the future is to have a family.
Right.
And so all that's going through your head at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, in the moment, I was just like, well, we need to figure this out because whenever we do have a family, you need to be your best self, and you can't neglect your own health because that ripples into just who you are for your kids, who you are for your spouse, and all that stuff. So you need to put yourself as a priority too. And so anyways, they removed the cyst. They were able to salvage the left fallopian tube, which is great. I don't know if I will eventually need that removed. We're going to deal with that whenever that time comes and if it comes. But right now I have changed my perspective to how can I change my diet, which I don't love the word, but I think of it as, just your habits of eating. I don't think of it as like Whole30, like a diet.
Right.
So
like the definition of what the word diet actually means,
right.
Like habitual consumption by a living organism.
Right.
Like that's diet, habitual keyword. Like it doesn't change. That's the keyword root to habit is like, it's something that you do over and over and over and over. That's somewhat difficult to change in our modern version in America of what dieting is not that. It is not the definition of the word. It is some secular definition that has been created by media and journalists to string us along in a way, because it hadn't changed in a long time. What works hasn't changed, right? It's right. Calories in, calories out, number one. Quality of calories, number two. Style of nutrition, keto, whatever. Intermittent fasting, Mediterranean diet, number three. That's it. That's what it's always been. And so, yeah, we can't get that confused by this headline or that headline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that media has really corrupted that word. But I really was trying to focus on clean eating and also intuitive eating and really dialing in on eating what makes me feel good. And then after the procedure, I had recovery time. And I've suffered injuries while I was at Burn before, but they were, I feel like, easier to wrap your head around because like I got a stress fracture in my foot. That was easy for me to kind of tell this hurts, that hurts, I need a modification, and kind of get an idea that I might need a modification at the beginning of camp. Just because, I mean, it's your foot, you use it every day and you can see it. Whereas the healing that was occurring in my body, I really needed to take time and reflect about during my workouts and really listen to my body. And I struggle with slowing down. I struggle with listening to my body. I want to push myself a little bit further. There's also a fine line between my muscles hurt because this is hard and I'm hurting because I'm injured. Like there's a line there. And so I push the line sometimes. But with this, I was nervous too, because I didn't want to do anything that would backfire and set back my journey for healing when I couldn't even see where my progression was at.
Right. Yeah. So you've done a lot of work, which is obvious. And how long have you been a member at Concord again?
3 years and some change.
And the majority of the work that you've done is post joining?
Yes.
Okay. So you're on your way, and you're clearly doing focus meetings, and you're clearly engaged. Your workouts are, I would say, very consistent. Is fair? So you're there, which is the hardest thing for most people to do, is just be consistent. Just show up to the gym consistently. Okay, you're working on your nutrition. You're dialing it in. You're going to the point where you've got logs, and you've been able to educate yourself around how you feel. Intuitive eating that you mentioned, which is for those that have never heard of intuitive eating. It's just where nutrition and your relationship with food crosses over self-awareness. That's all it is. So if I'm able to be self-aware about the way that foods make me feel after I'm done eating them, and I use that as the axiom to make the decision to eat the food or not, now we're talking intuitive eating. And I think I needed to clear that up, because a lot of people just say what intuitive eating is, but they don't actually define it. And it is just where self-awareness crosses over your healthy relationship with food. And for me, the ascension up the nutrition chain, if you will, for me has been really, how does that relationship with food mature? And a lot of times, you mentioned the word perspective a few times. And as your relationship with food matures, you'll know it's maturing when you sit down and you look at your food and you're actually literally emotionally grateful for the food that sits in front of you, and you respect where the fruit came from, and you respect where the protein came from, and you think about those things, and you think about the sacrifice that had to go into making it and putting it together, and your hard work and putting it in front of you, and wow, this beautiful opportunity for me to get fuel into my body, for me to do the things that I want to do in my life. And so that's where I'm going to start with you. Is you're working out, it's nutrition. You got some motivation with an underlying medical diagnosis that you're managing that. And it sounds like you're managing that very well. And now it's like, well, what's the big idea? Like, why go do all this? Yes, health, energy, happiness, 100%. But that's also very abstract, right? And you can't hit a target in which you don't see. And so if we don't take the vision of the future and we don't bring it down to clarity, then it's really hard to continue working out nutrition and all of these things that you have to do in the long run, right? Because the great thing about fitness and nutrition and health for me is it's a never-ending game. The game is, until the day that we die, it's a longevity game. And so I'm really interested to hear why all of this work. What vision of the future do you have for yourself, and how does all of this fit in? Because inevitably you're still in what I would call the honeymoon period, like the first 5 years of really working out hard, right? There's a period, and oftentimes college athletes will get this as well post-college, where it's like, I've been killing it for 4 straight years, and I'm done with college, and it's like, that was my job for a long time. So, you have a tendency, or one has a tendency to back off the intensity. They've given themselves permission for putting all that work in to back off now, and there's a justification to that. So talk to me about the future and how you set your goals, where you want to be, how does all of your health activity that you're working on a daily basis, what is that leading to? this is a hard question, right? Because it's like, we got a lot of stuff to do. It is day over day, week over week, a lot of times, right? Seeing beyond that requires intentionality. It requires sitting down to see beyond that. So have you been able to sit down to look up, to aim high, and to look over the horizon, if you can, to see what's on the other side? And if so, what is that vision? If not, we'll focus on that. We can really do some work to get you there. So what are your thoughts?
I want to have a healthy family, and I want to lead a healthy family. My husband and I don't have kids yet. And whenever we do, that's a priority, is that we'll have nutritious food in the house. I plan to bring them to Burn. I plan to show them what I do, the insanity that I do every day, so that they can see that, physical activity is important. And it's not a chore. It's meant to make you feel good. So I have been really intentional about showing up to the gym even when I don't want to, because I go to 5 a.m. Most of the time. If I miss 5 a.m., then I'm at 6:30, or I do a walk or something instead. But that's the time that works for me. And I've been going to 5 a.m. for a while, to the point where it's now part of my morning routine. And if I don't go to the gym before I go to work, I'm more tired at work. It's part of how I wake up. It was a struggle to get into, but it's my guaranteed time. And I plan to carry that through. I have thought about a little bit, when would I go to the gym whenever I have kids at home? I don't know. I'm sure I'd figure it out, because I am surrounded by other women who come to the gym and have kids at home.
Yeah, you got some built-in role models at Burn Concord, don't you?
And I can bring them with me.
Right.
But I've thought about that, really focusing now on preparing myself, and my husband and I preparing ourselves for the people that we want to be in the future, for our kids and our family and their legacy as well. And that would be the biggest motivation to getting a routine, getting a habit, really honing in on that.
So I want to ask you something, and I want to ask the listeners something too, because when I get in front of groups and I'm speaking, whether it's at some conference that somebody hires me in, or at a gym, stop in to train a camp and work with our teams, I ask people to raise their hand if they can show me a piece of paper that they read every day that has some rendition of their goals in the future on it. Like, just raise your hand, and be careful if you raise your hand, because I'm going to make you show me the piece of paper, right? So don't just raise your hand because your ego wants to be the one in the room that is, successful at goal setting. Almost nobody raises their hand. Almost no one. 1% to 2% of the room max on any, and I talk to high level business leaders too. Like people that are running companies, they'll bring me in to give seminar, tell them what Burn's doing and how we've done what we've done pretty quickly and all that. Almost nobody does this, but I do know that the people that do it, that they put a proper vision of themselves out in the future on paper, that they almost always get what they're asking for, right? Ask and you shall receive, right? If you want to hit a target in the future, well, it is best if that target is specific. So then what is specificity? Well, that is breaking down life into different buckets and making sure that as you are setting goals, that you are doing it in a 360 approach, right? Body, mind, emotion, spirituality. You just hit on your kids with relationships, time, work, money. These are the 8 things that really make up life for us. And so what we've got to do is, you might have heard me talk about this with people before in the past, because it's quite, as I mentioned, a common issue, is we get very vague about what we might like to have in the future. I'd like to be healthy and happy and prosperous. Okay, great. Welcome to all 8 billion people. If they got what they wanted, they'd be healthy, happy, and prosperous. We got to dial it in and create a target in which we can see. Once we can see it, it becomes real. We can visualize it. Once we visualize it, we know through the breakthrough article in 1995 in the journal Nature, we know that if you think something, It's the same as doing it as long as what you're thinking doesn't stay at thought and it goes to emotion, right? If we can visualize the future and then we can feel how that feels in the moment, it's already done. It's already done. And so this is the practice. This is the exercise. That's how Burn has been built. That is how any successful person, whether they realize it or not, they had visualized the outcome. They had told themselves the story of the outcome before somebody else told them the story of their outcome, right? You're controlling your own destiny. So let me ask you now, Anna, if I asked you to show me a piece of paper that had all your goals written on it into the future, not what you're going to do next week, not a to-do list, your goals written into the future, could you produce a piece of paper and show me that and read it to me?
No,
Okay.
I would not raise my hand.
Okay, you would not raise your hand. Okay, so it makes a lot of sense to me to probably work on that, because now what we can do is we can design that target, and it might change and it will change, but we can design that target now is so at least we have a baseline to change from as we wake up every day and remind ourselves, reread our goals. Now we've got something that we can see, that we can visualize, and just watch how your life starts to change. You'll know, and everybody else will know that what I'm saying is true, because everyone has experienced this before. When you buy a new car, or let's say you never bought a car, you buy a new pair of shoes. As soon as you walk out of the shoe store, as soon as you drive that car off the lot, you see that car everywhere. It's like you buy the brand new black 2024 Tahoe and you pull out, and like on the way, from the car dealership to your house, you pass 5 black Tahoes. And you're like, I have never seen those things before. It's because what's important to you, you will find it out in the world. Mm-hmm. So if you're constantly reminding yourself every day of what your vision is, you're going to start to see things that align with your vision out there in the world. Do you believe in that?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
So and you've done this before in your life, haven't you? Mm-hmm. In some smaller scale.
Yes.
What's an instance in which you've visualized the future, had a goal, had an intention, and then you went out and you said, I'm going to go get this no matter what. And then all of a sudden it ended up happening. Can you think of a scenario that's happened in your life off the top of your head?
Yeah. Joining the gym.
Okay. How long did you think about joining the gym before you joined the gym?
A while. And
Okay.
I don't know that it was necessarily Burn. It was just, I needed to join a gym.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the vision of yourself was what?
I didn't like the vision of myself in the mirror, and I wanted it to change. And I remember whenever I first joined the gym, within about a month, I took a expo marker and I wrote it on the bathroom mirror so that I would see it every day. And which is the same kind of concept you're talking about, but it wasn't a list of goals. It was just a quote, and it said, "If you don't change, nothing will change."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, isn't that so true?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's true. And also it gives us power, because now the ball's in our court, right? And if our life doesn't change, that's because we're not changing, right? Mm-hmm. If our outcomes don't change, it's because our character isn't changing. Mm-hmm. Like the yogis call it the great gap. They call it the gap. It's whatever mountain peak that you're on today, like there's another mountain peak in the future that you're looking out toward. First, you got to define what that mountain peak looks like. And then it's that tightrope dance on the way there. You're walking from peak to peak on a tightrope, and that's the gap. And you're going to get stuck along the way with headwinds and tailwinds or crosswinds that want to push you off that tightrope as you're making your journey. And that's called gaps. Those are your gaps. Those are your character gaps. So if you want to go to mountain peak, you want to grow, the growth is in the gaps. You're identifying, what gaps do I have? Like what are the things, like, let me get a personal issues list together, because if I keep my problems, my gaps, my issues, whatever way you want to language them, these things that are stopping me, right? A great question you all can ask yourself is like, what's actually stopping mm-hmm. me? Well, that's the growth opportunity for you. And if you can lean into that, you can lean into the issues along the journey, and you can tackle them into the most important things, then all of a sudden what happens is you start to change, and then your outcomes in life start to change. It's not the other way around, and you know that. But often so many people will ask the world around them to change. rather than going inward and changing themselves. They'll want everyone else to change their circumstances to provide a better environment so that I can thrive and be happy. But really what they didn't understand that it's always been about thriving from the inside out. It's always been about, what do you want? What is your heart and what is your intuition? What does your mind tell you? And let's go out and make that happen unto the world, and nobody's stopping you but yourself. And so you're just at a point where you know all this stuff, and now there's just this vision of the future that if you start to define it and you get it on paper, as simple as that sounds, I mean, it's a hard thing to do because you're just like, oh, what am I supposed to visualize like 10 years in advance? Like, how do I do that? Like, I want to be healthy, happy, and prosperous. Great. Isn't that a good enough vision? The answer is no. But okay, let's work backwards and let's actually do an exercise to get you into the point where you do have that piece of paper every day that you can wake up and you can read it to yourself, and it's got to be on such an inspiring vision of the future. Like, you got to read it every day, and it's these words on the paper, but you're translating the words on the paper into how you feel into your body. So what we're going to do right now, if you don't mind, if you'd like to, is I'd like to go ahead and do that exercise. You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it'll be super, super helpful. And then from there, now it's like, okay, what nutrition adjustments do I need to make? Well, let me reference where I'm going to inform what I need to do today, rather than just waking up and feeling like you need a change, right? It's the North Star. I call it. It's the guiding light. You're always going to have something to reference. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to explain the exercise. We're going to go ahead and shut off the podcast for a minute. We'll come back. Don't worry. But I want to, number one, I want to give you 10 minutes. Okay. 10 minutes to write out as many goals as you can. Just keep your pen going. There's no right or wrong answer, okay? And whatever you're answering the question, what are some things that I might potentially want in the future? That's it. No pressure. You could just potentially might kind of want it, right?
Okay.
You don't have to want it. There'll be things that are concrete on there too, that you're like, oh yeah, this is where I'm going, like family and kids, for example, right? And it's probably unnegotiable for you to have children that come into this world and look up to, and that do not have a role model in health and fitness for a mother, right? That's non-negotiable, right? So those types of things, it could be that emotional goals for your family. It could be a material goal. It could be a selfish goal. It could be a non-selfish goal. It could be a contribution and giving goal. I want to give to charity. I want to own a charity. I want to own a business. I want to make this amount of money. Whatever comes to your mind. And I'll prompt you as we're going. And my prompts are going to be on those 8 pieces of the pie that I talked about: body, mind, emotions, spirit, relationship, time, work, money. Those are your prompts. You kind of want to think through that. But we're going to write for 10 minutes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go down the list. And then this will be step 2. We're going to go, hey, does that take about 10 years, about 3 years, about 1 year? Or is that something that you wrote down that's already done? That's the second step. The third step is we're going to then tally the 10, 3, 1, and done. We're going to tally those in a box to give us an idea of whether you're a long-term, mid-term, or short-term thinker, right? Wherever you're heavy, okay, that's where your mind naturally works. And wherever you're light, which I can predict will probably be more in like the 10-year, 5-year. Probably, I'll predict that you'll have a lot more dones and a lot more ones. But we'll go through the ones and if we have to, the 3s, and we'll start to prioritize them by 1, 2, and 3. Now you've got macro priority, right? That you can go, what we're going to do is we're going to write a story against that macro priority, because people learn by stories, not by information. And then that to-do list that you crush on a daily basis, the one that you pride yourself in getting done, the one that when you wrote in your intake form, I'm like, dude, I'm great at putting goals on paper, and like today and this week, and just getting it done, task oriented. Now we're going to have a really compelling vision of why. So now you're going to know, hey, should I actually do this today or shouldn't I? Right? So that's the game. So what we're going to do is that we're going to take a pause. We can take our headphones off, and we'll see you guys back here shortly. All right, and we are back. All right, Anna just went through the exercise that we just explained, and we're going to review that exercise right now. And so I'll start by asking Anna, let's just go down your list, and let's just go ahead and read some of the things that you put down. So just as a reminder, the exercise was 10 minutes to write anything that comes to mind that you might potentially want in the future, whether it be material, emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, whatever, relational, time, work, money, job change, career change, whatever the future looks like for you, write it down. So Anna, what did you come up with? Let's go down your list.
Project manager at work, new SUV, easy to use grocery list with variety. It's important. Pull up with no band. I want to plan events as a side hustle, help other people with nutrition. I want to go on an African safari, retire and still be able to go on extravagant trips, coach my kids' sporting, some of their sports, do the SAC unassisted, work-life balance, continue to integrate what went well, what didn't go well, what can I change, just that self-awareness and reflection. Build a home gym with all equipment needed, buy a lake house, dinners with the whole family each evening, be financially stable so that the kids can be included in club sports and travel sports, routinely donate to an organization that helps with foster care or adoption, do a cookbook, put together a cookbook, be a part of the social committee at work, go on more walks with the dogs, and increase my contributions to 401k.
What an amazing list. And here you thought you weren't a visionary. Now all of a sudden you got all these visionary things down. Why? Because we just made the space where all we were focused on for 10 minutes was just thinking about putting all the thoughts and visions that you and your husband or just you and or him have and just putting it on paper, right? Mm-hmm. How helpful is that? Just to like get it all out there, right?
Yes.
All right, but the job's not done. The second step was then to go down the list and to prioritize. So every goal that Anna just told y'all, she has a 1, a 3, a 10, or a D standing for done right next to that goal. So when I first met Anna, I was assuming based on our relationship so far and what I've read about her and learned about her that she might have a real heavy 1-year goal. Like it might skew real heavy 1 year and not so much 10-year. But as we went through this, I think you surprised yourself and definitely my preconceived notions were not correct. And you're more of a long-term thinker than I thought. So that means, you're projecting beyond just next week into future years. So talk to me about what your tallies came up with. I asked you to tally 10, 3, 1, and done. And what were the marks?
Well, I had 4 for 10. I had 6 for 3. I recounted and had 7 for 1, and then 5 for done.
So you're pretty even across the board. Still heavy in 1 year, and that's the reality with most people. That's the heaviest one usually. With me, the heaviest one's always 10-year, just because I think so far out, and I don't have a lot of 1 year. That's where Morgan comes in for me, and she can really help get 10 years down to 1 year. But the 1 year that's where the rubber meets the road. 10 years is great. That's a directional conversation. That's a directional vision. 3 years, like these are things just outside of your grasp. Like you can feel it, but you're not quite there yet to touch it within the year. But then the 1 category is so important. And by the way, the D category is an interesting one because a lot of times we'll think about in this exercise, we'll think about things we want to do in the future. And actually, when you go back and you read through it and you ask yourself, is this already done? Sometimes many of the things are actually already done. And it's really interesting, that when we ask ourselves, what do we want in the future, that we'll put some things down that are already done, which usually means that you're a go-getter and an achiever in that you can have a vision and then go actually put the work in to execute and get it done. But number 1 was heavy for you. So there were 7 things. The next step in this was to prioritize all of the 1s. That's what we want to do. We want to prioritize those 7 1s by order 1 through 7. So why don't you go ahead and do that. Let's start at number 7. And let's save the most important one for last. Start from 7 and go to 1.
All right. So 7 was completing the SAC unassisted. And then 6 was doing a pull-up with no band. Have to have that to do number 7. And then number 5 was joining the social committee at work. Number 4 was creating an easy-to-use grocery list, some sort of platform. Number 3 was I had written to be financially stable so that our kids can be involved in club sports and all the school activities, external like year-round activities. But I have that as a 1 because that starts now with a conversation for kind of how do we get there? Let's put that into action. So that was number 3. And then 2 is going on more walks with the dogs. And then 1 was dinners each evening with the whole family.
Right. And that's an amazing list. I thought you did an incredible job at your first attempt with this style of goal setting. And there's only one thing missing now, right? Now that you've got a priority, like you know what the most important things are to you in the next year, in the next 3, and in the next 10, but most importantly, what's in front of you. And I gave you a limited amount of time to do the exercise so that you didn't have all day to think about it. If you're bound by time, it's like the most important things just tend to pop up. Now, the last piece of this, and I'll give you this as homework, and then hopefully we can get you back on the podcast and we can talk about it. I'll definitely have you text me your story if you're willing to share, but you have to put those priorities, right? Starting with the priorities for the next year, that 1-year vision, put it down on paper, right? Put it down on paper. All 7, add additional 3, the 3 years, and additional 10 years if you'd like to. But for sure, all 7 of those things have to end up in a story, right? And that story can't just be about what you want to do. It's got to be specifically what you want to do, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And it's got to be a narrative of how you're going to feel when these things are already done. You get that? So it's not about what you want to do. It's about the feeling of how you will feel when it's already done. That's the next step. That's called the North Star vision. And you'll do that on 3 full pieces of paper. And we said every line, not skipping a line, right? Yep. Because what that does is that forces you to be specific. It gives you room. Take 30 minutes. Take an hour, go off somewhere, maybe in nature, go to Jatan Park, take a walk around, stop on the bench and sit there. Ask your husband, to watch the kids for one evening, one time, so you can do this. Do it together if you'd like to do it together. But that would be the next step. And I would love, love, love to see what you come up with, because now you're going to have a story that is one that's created by you. Not some preconceived story that was created by somebody else. And unless we make our own story, we move and learn and grow through story, through metaphor. Unless we make our own, we have no other choice to adhere to somebody else's version of what we'd like to be. And so this exercise is so important, you guys. I encourage each and every one of you out there in Burn Nation to do it. Anna, how did this feel for you going through this the first time?
Well, it was hard at first to think of things. And I, especially with the long-term goals, I feel like we go through life and we kind of say, we pass by a cool car and we say, that's cool. That would be cool to have one day. But I wouldn't think of that as like a goal on paper. I think of, most of my goal setting that I do that gets put on paper is about work. And it's about like my career, my professional goals. So whenever I think of like a house or a car or something like that, I just think of it as an idea. But to your point, it's very hard to make that come into fruition if you don't have like steps to get there that you know how to do. Yeah. Because if you don't know how to do something, you're never going to get it done. It goes for everything.
It's like 3 questions. Do I want it? Right? Can I do it? And is this something I must do? And if you answer, I want it bad, yes. Can I? 100%. And that last question is the most important, because you will get exactly what you must get. You will rarely, if ever, get what you think you should get. Tony Robbins said that the problem with a lot of human beings is that they should, they should do this, they should do that, until they should all over themselves, is what he says, which I think is kind of funny. Yeah. Because that's kind of metaphorically what you're doing. It's should. That's not going to turn out good. It's I can, I will, I must, right? I can, I want it, I can have it, I must have it. And if you take that approach to that 1 year, that's game over. Right. It's game over. This has been really good. So Any other, before we wrap here, any other insights that you'd like to share with Burn Nation on this, whether from your story, from this exercise that we just did, any parting words?
No, I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to come on here and share my journey. Part of what I'm trying to do right now, especially with my just kind of seeking my medical advice recently and all of that, is to really embrace my journey. A lot of times we can get stuck in the comparison game. And I think it's very important to kind of take a step back. And, I tell myself a lot because, if you get discouraged, this is what I tell myself, is that I could literally sit, do the same workouts, eat the same food as the person next to me, and things would still be different. So we're all our own individual person. And so just embrace that. And, life will be fun sometimes, life will be hard sometimes, but it's your story. So really lean into that and make your life what you want it to be.
It's wise words, Anna. Okay. I think that's a good place to stop, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in today to listen to this week's focus meeting. If you'd like to be here with me, like Anna is here today, or on what we call Riverside, which is our platform for digital focus meetings, we can do that as well. I would love to have you all. What you're going to do is just go ahead and DM me, okay? Devan.Kline and on Instagram, and let me know. And I will definitely get you with the team to get you set up. And this has been such an amazing focus meeting today. Thank you for your vulnerability, your intention around the exercise that we did. You took it extremely seriously, and because of that, you're going to get extremely great results from it. And we'll follow up, okay? We'll follow up, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll keep you going, all right?
All right.
All right, we'll take it out. 2 claps on 2 like we always do. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.